So the answers should give an explanation and development to particular points given in the answer. Fourthly, evaluation. This is where a candidate makes reasoned judgment. So they look at decisions they have been asked to make. Questions indicate that evaluation is being asked where they recommend the best method a business should choose. The candidate needs to look at different alternatives. This would be an E question on paper 1 and a B question on paper 2. Candidates are asked to make judgments and are asked, do you think the business should? Candidates need to make decisions, then justify why they have made these particular decisions. Candidates need to have knowledge and understanding of the concepts, but the knowledge and understanding may not be of much use if the learners cannot actually use that knowledge and understanding. So candidates need to be able to understand this and be able to apply these concepts and terms to particular scenarios. They need to be able to analyse why it might be a benefit to a business, or what is illustrated in, for example, a particular income statement, or perhaps a set of financial data, what the information might mean to the business, if the information is saying the business is successful or not. Following on, then candidates will make judgments as to whether a particular course of action is going to be the best for a business. In conclusion, knowledge and understanding underpins all of this, but the other assessment objectives are the skills the learner should develop and show that they can use as part of their answers to questions. Now, these assessment objectives are weighted differently on the two papers, and I will now go on to look at paper 1. Assessment objectives weighting. Assessment objectives on paper 1. The weighting of the assessment objectives you will see is heavily weighted towards knowledge and understanding and also application. This means that on, for example, an A and a B question, candidates need to show their knowledge and understanding of specific terms or concepts from the business studies syllabus. Application is also very important, as it is emphasised that candidates need to be able to apply this knowledge to particular business scenarios they are given. Now, across the paper, the questions, that's A, B, C, D and E, will have some marks for knowledge. Showing knowledge of a particular term or concept is important, but also being able to apply this knowledge to the business given to them in the stem of the question is required. You will note that not that many marks are being allocated for analysis and evaluation. Analysis tends to be tested in the D questions, where candidates are expected to explain particular points. And evaluation is only tested in the E questions, where candidates are asked to make decisions. So when you look at the questions and prepare learners for paper 1, they should appreciate that they need to have good knowledge, but also to apply this knowledge to the particular business scenarios or situations they've been given. There will be less emphasis on being able to analyse and evaluate on these particular points. The weighting is different to paper 2, and I will go through this on a later slide. Key feedback messages for paper 1. Across all the paper 1s, whether it be paper 1-1, 1-2 or 1-3, the structure of the questions is the same. They all have 5 parts, A, B, C, D and E. The candidates, when they are answering these questions, need to refer to the beginning of the question where there should be a stem. Candidates need to make sure they are using this stem, as they should use and interpret the information provided, and it should be used throughout in their answers to questions. For example, question 2C from paper 1-1. Identify and explain 2 diseconomies of scale that Ramford might be experiencing. The answer must be relevant to this business, which makes food products including breakfast cereals and ice cream. For this question, the candidate might have said that there is poor communication, as messages need to be sent between the 4 factories. Or on paper 1-2, the question, identify and explain 2 advantages to Walt if he decided to use a wholesaler to distribute his products. This business is a company that develops computer games, so the candidate could include consideration of computer games. And the STEM mentions the packaging needs changing, and Walt needs to sell games to other countries, and the wholesaler might have links abroad. When candidates are reading the STEM, they need to be clear about the business in the STEM and use it in their answers. Paper 1.3, identify 2 stakeholder groups. Explain why each stakeholder group might support QF's group's objective of growth. The candidate must answer by referring to each stakeholder, making sure the answer is from the point of view of the correct stakeholder. Most questions are referring to the business, e.g. paper 1.1. Identify and explain 2 advantages to Grimshaw of developing new products. So the stakeholder is the business itself. The A and sometimes the B questions are asking about specific knowledge. It is important that candidates can give precise definitions in answer to these questions. For example, paper 1.3, question 3A. What is meant by span of control? Candidates need to learn the terms listed in the specification to enable them to gain both marks in these questions. If just 2 points are asked for, such as paper 1.3, question 4B, identify 2 limitations of using number of employees as a method of measuring business size, then only a short sentence each is required. For example, it could have many part-time employees or give no indication of value or market share or revenue. Candidates can also be asked to undertake calculations. If a candidate works out the answer and only puts down the answer, then if it is correct they will gain all the available marks. However, if they make an error when calculating the answer and put down their workings, then credit can be given for using a correct method, even if the answer is incorrect. So it is always worthwhile showing all workings. For example, on paper 1.1, question 1B, calculate the output per employee per week in 2014. The workings should be shown in the answer. In parts C and D, these require candidates to identify and explain, and there are prompts to help candidates know what to do. For example, paper 1.1, question 1C, identify and explain 2 possible advantages to TWH of using batch production. 1 mark is for identifying an advantage, such as it allows more variety of products to be made, and a second mark is for an explanation, so it can respond to changes in demand for different toys. A common error is to give an advantage and then repeat the point in the advantage. Also, the answer needs to be in context for the C and D questions. Otherwise, the total mark for these questions could only be 2 out of 4 or 4 out of 6. Make sure the advantage is explained as to why it is an advantage to the business in the STEM. For example, paper 1.2, question 3D. Identify and explain 2 factors that NCE would need to consider in deciding which workers to make redundant. The answer will need to be a car manufacturer and details about this business to gain the application marks. Candidates should keep practicing answering in the context of the STEM and make sure they always explain why an answer is, for an example, an advantage or why it's a reason. For the Part E questions, candidate needs to ensure that they are developing arguments. The arguments need to be 2-sided. Candidates cannot make a decision if they have not considered 2 sides of an argument. There are only 6 marks available, and so there is not room or time for candidates to fully develop arguments. So what I would suggest is that they should only try and include one.